So, Reggie Wayne said that Josh Downs is the player that the Colts have been missing. Now, for any of you that heard Reggie Wayne say this, you know that this isn't like something that happened yesterday, right? This was maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months, something like that. I don't know. This isn't like new news, right? As they say on New Heights. You watch that show with the Kelseys? Great stuff. But regardless, this isn't new news, right? But I haven't talked about it on this channel. So I guess for me it is. And maybe you haven't heard it. And, I'm bringing it to you right now. And also, really, there is no news, right? I know there was an update on that Isaiah Rodgers situation, but realistically, was that news? I mean, we already knew where that was going, right? There was no surprise in that suspension. I mean, the Colts released him. That's one thing. But I don't really find it all that interesting, that conversation. Regardless, if you really want to hear me talk about Isaiah Rodgers and the whole deal, I'll sneak it onto the back end of this episode. But I do personally find today's topic, as highlighted in the video title, is much more interesting, and not for anything. It is my show, so that's what you're going to get, is what I find interesting. I apologize if that's brash, but I mean, you are here, right? So when Reggie Wayne says something like that he being Josh Downs, the player that the Colts have been missing, what exactly does that mean? What were the Colts missing? What is Josh Downs bringing to the table that they didn't or don't already have? And you got to wonder, when you hear one of the all-time great Colts receivers say that, it has to hold a little bit more weight than someone else saying it, right? I mean, keep in mind, Reggie Wayne, as I just said, not only a great receiver, but did it in Indianapolis. Now, I know I'm stating the obvious and bringing that up. You guys all know and love Reggie Wayne, but I only bring it up to stress why I feel that it is his opinion on Josh Downs in Indianapolis holds a little bit more weight than the next, right? When he says something like that, we know that Reggie Wayne is not only saying that from like his pride in the position that he's coaching, being the wide receivers, but we also know that he has a lot of pride in that blue and white and that horseshoe, right? So Reggie Wayne isn't going to say anything about this team that he thinks isn't like, I don't know, or he thinks that's going to compromise them or something like that, right? So he means it when he says this about Josh Downs. That's my point. And on top of it all, what if Reggie is right in the middle of the intro? I can't tell if the microphone's picking it up. There's a Mr. Softy truck over there. Do you hear that? Do you hear the Mr. Softy truck? Or am I the only fat kid here? All right, regardless. So back into it, Justin. Back into it, right? So what if Reggie Wayne is right? What if Josh Downs really is that guy, right? I mean, there are a lot of things to speculate, but make no mistake, all this is speculation, right? But I do want to take some time to speculate, right? And ultimately, much of this speculation, we have found the word of the day, haven't we? Much of this is going to be clarified come training camp. But in the meantime, why can't we live in the land of what ifs, right? After all, if you're anything like me, you cannot get enough Colts football. Am I right? So today's episode is going to be all about my take on what Reggie Wayne said, and then exploring what it would mean for the Colts if he were to be right about Josh Downs. Quick diversion, though. Speak of training camp, I mentioned it. I will be attending 2 days of Colts training camp in August. This is actually going to be my first time going to the city of Indianapolis. For those of you who don't know, some of you might know. You've been rocking with the channel for some time. I've mentioned it a few times. I run this show out of Long Island, New York. Born and raised around 800 miles away from Lucas Oil Stadium. But this is probably my first year. Not probably my first year. This is my first year with the Colts show, right? So I impulse booked a flight to stay in Indianapolis for the weekend, essentially just for the content, just for the podcast. The trip to Indianapolis was long overdue, but the thing that really pushed me over the edge was this show, was some of the growth that I'm starting to see here. I have no delusions about the size of this channel, but I do see the growth, and I want to make sure that I'm bringing you the best information as possible. And I want to get a look at the Colts that I've never had, particularly when we have Anthony Richardson and everything this year. If there was ever a year to go to Colts training camp, this kind of feels like the one, right? So I'm very, very, very excited about that. If you want to make sure that you're going to see my takeaways on what I saw at training camp, you're going to want to subscribe so you don't miss it. Of course, you subscribe and you hit that bell. You're going to see it before everyone else because you're going to be notified when I give my training camp takeaways. And then if you're enjoying this episode so far, you find yourself enjoying it as you continue to listen and watch, feel free to shoot a like. That's going to get me out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. But most importantly, just enjoy the show. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to make the Colts community a better place. I'm here for you to have something joyful to listen to in reference or about these Indianapolis Colts. So that is it. The housekeeping is out of the way. Well, no, it's not. Let me introduce myself. Justin, this is the Ride in the Bench Colts cast. Did I miss the mark? No, we're going to end the intro right there. Thank you for being here. All the things I just said, still valid. I'm not editing this out. Damn, can't speak. Not editing this out. Right? I'm just going to keep it here, and we're going to get into the body of the episode here. So when you look at the Colts receiving core, more specifically, rather, when you look at the Colts receiving core through the lens of what Reggie Wayne said, right? And if you need to be reminded again, he said that Josh Downs is what this unit has been missing. You have to take a look at each of the individual guys that we project may be part of this roster and kind of looking at what they're bringing to the table, right? So you look at a Michael Pittman, and he's kind of that out of that possession receiver, right? Really good in that intermediate range. He gets a lot of hate for dropping 4 passes out of like 105 targets. I mean, my goodness, give the guy a break. I know they're inopportune. This is a sure-handed guy that gives really great work in this 10 to 20-yard intermediate range. Maybe not the ultimate deep threat, but make no mistake, you can find Pittman downfield if the play is right. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Keenan Allen in that role. Maybe not as polished of a route runner, maybe not as savvy. He's not the veteran that Keenan Allen is, but fills a similar role in the offense of kind of that possession-type guy, nice security blanket for a young quarterback. You look at Alec Pierce, at least the way we used him last year, was kind of that 50-50 deep ball threat. Basically, you know, if your quarterback's in trouble, can't find anyone open, if Pierce is in single coverage, throw it up to him, give him a chance, right? Isaiah McKenzie, perhaps the most comparable to Josh Downs that we currently have on the roster, mostly due to the fact that we know he's going to be giving us work out of the slot, right? Ashton Doolin, a guy who's been here for some years, has given us great special teams work. Love Ashton Doolin, has played inside and out for us, and that is what it is. I think he's a nice little depth piece. You look at Brashad Perriman, we brought him in, bona fide deep threat in this league, maybe not an elite wide receiver, but is a guy that has produced as a deep threat in multiple different places, right? And then a Mike Strawn, who I just feel the need to bring up because he's big-bodied. A lot of Colts fans really like him. We'll see if he makes the roster, but that's kind of the infrastructure we have in place in the receiving core. Now, I'm sure I missed a couple names. They'll prove themselves when the time comes. I apologize. I'm just sitting here talking, right? So if I missed your name and you so happen to be watching my show, well, thank you for being an Indianapolis Colt and listening. But regardless, I doubt anyone's going to see this that's on the team, right? So when you look at the group, yes, Josh Downs does bring something that these guys do not, right? He has that great lateral movement, can really get guys looking silly on some of these misdirections, right? These misdirection types routes. For an example, the type of route that a Julian Edelman made really famous in New England, right? Where he kind of, hopefully my hand is on the screen, kind of comes in, right? Fakes the in and then breaks out, right? Kind of gets the corner cheating down. And then now he has this pocket of space and maybe you cleared out the corner that's on the outside with like a deep pass, right? And you give Josh Downs some room to operate. He can turn a 3 to 5 yard completion in the air into a really long gain. And that's the type of thing that goes a long way in helping out a young quarterback, right? And then also makes things easier on the coaching staff, right? Because they feel like when they need a chunk of yards, you know, the only way to do it isn't just to, you know, play action, deep ball down the field, right? So assuming, of course, Josh Downs can stay healthy, this is what he's bringing that we don't have. But do keep in mind that Reggie Wayne didn't say it's what we are missing. He said it's what we were missing, we being, I guess, the wide receiver unit, right? Which does imply that Reggie Wayne is looking at last season. Now, of course, he did go on to mention things not only about Downs' physical traits, like his agility and his speed and things of that nature, but his intangibles as well, right? How well he thinks through the game, how well he understands it, and, you know, how he's been surrounded by football his entire life. These were all things that Reggie mentioned. And am I reading too deep into what Reggie Wayne said? I know some of you might be getting there already. Well, maybe, right? Perhaps I may be just diving in a little bit too deep into some passing comments in an interview by Reggie Wayne, but hell, that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to dig deep into these Indianapolis Colts. So forgive me if I'm looking a little too deep into it. I'm only doing it so you don't have to, right? So you could go on with your life. So I can't help but have one really big takeaway from this, and I suppose it's on a personal note, really, I guess as a reflection of my own analysis, right? All the things that Reggie Wayne has said about Josh Downs, all the things that I've said about Josh Downs, couldn't they have just been said about Parris Campbell, right? What does all of this say about Parris Campbell? You know, of course, it's a different set of circumstances, right? You have the different coach, you have the different quarterback. So it's not like what we see from Downs is going to be a direct reflection of, you can't compare it directly to what we've seen out of Parris Campbell. But for me personally, I'm not going to be able to help but to measure Josh Downs up against what I think Parris Campbell could have done in this offense with Shane Steichen. And we'll see. Now, maybe Parris isn't as good as I thought he was, right? Maybe the Colts thought that as well. I mean, they clearly viewed Downs as a better alternative, right? Because they could have simply just given Parris the contract that the Giants did. They didn't give him like some bag. They gave him kind of like a 1-year prove it. And even in a best case scenario, I think he was only going to make like $8 million on that deal. So the Colts had to have seen something that maybe I don't know about. But again, as I said, for me personally, one thing I'm going to be looking at, whether it's fair or not, is I'm going to be comparing Josh Downs to Parris Campbell, mostly because all of these things that we say about Josh Downs, we were saying about Parris Campbell, and ultimately didn't work out quite the way we wanted it to. I thought he gave us a productive year last year, given what was in place. But again, am I wrong for that? Tell me if you agree with my line of thinking on that. Maybe I'm out of pocket. I don't know. But now let's get to the point where we explore where Reggie Wayne, or a world where Reggie Wayne is right about Josh Downs, where not only is he a solid rookie, but a world where he comes in and is an immediate impact player for this offense. What would that look like for the Indianapolis Colts? Well, excuse me. Let me get a little bit of water here, right? It's been a while I've been talking. Sorry, don't edit any of this out, by the way. It just takes more time for the production, and I'm a busy guy, so you're kind of, you're with all the imperfections here. That's what you get, right? So we would have a pretty complete receiving core if Josh Downs was able to deliver the way Reggie Wayne thinks he can, right? I mean, we'd have our 50-50 deep ball threat in Alec Pierce. I'm going to kind of reiterate all of the things I said maybe, 5-6 minutes ago or whatever, just to kind of paint the picture with Downs in it, right? We have the 50-50 deep ball threat in Pierce. We have that mid-range, intermediate, 10 to 20-yard type possession receiver in Michael Pittman. We have a proven deep threat. Say what you want about him. Brashad Perriman, a proven deep threat in this league, right? There was the thing about, and listen, I don't make much of a to-do about what happens in OTAs, but first play, first day, whatever it was, Brashad Perriman, 60-yard connection between him and Anthony Richardson, right? Just goes to show what I'm talking about. And then we have a guy in Isaiah McKenzie that's going to rotate into the slot with Josh Downs. We have an Ashton Doolin who hasn't exactly fully found his niche as a receiver on the Indianapolis Colts, but he has played both inside and outside for us, and I think is more than viable as a depth piece for us. So when you put all of that together and take into account the size that we have at tight end, if Josh Downs were to deliver on Reggie Wayne's expectations, this offense, in theory, isn't missing much, right? Am I wrong? Am I missing something? So long as the QB situation plays itself out the way we would expect it to, of course, right? So that's kind of all my give to do. That's all my to do, my to say. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Everything I have to say about Reggie Wayne and Josh Downs, I just said it right there. Now, real quick, let's just talk about Isaiah Rodgers. I'll get it out of the way. Listen, he's suspended for this year. That's before the investigation has concluded, of course. He's cut from the Colts. He's gone. My big thing about this is this. For all of you, and he was a big piece of what we were doing this year. I don't want to dismiss it, but Isaiah Rodgers a few years ago, what was that to us, right? I think in 5 years' time, no one is going to be looking back and saying, man, if only we had Isaiah Rodgers on this team, right? So I don't say that as a way to put him down. I think he's a good dude. I want him to get a second chance. Given the fact that he bet on the Colts, it's definitely not going to be with us. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking by telling you that. I know you listening know he's not going to be back in Indianapolis. Curious to see if he bet the over or the under on that 100-yard game, whatever the heck the bet was that he placed on us. I'm guessing it was under, which is horrific. Not for anything. I mean, that, on a serious note, even though I'm like laughing about it, because I don't care, to do something like that, I mean, that's a real break of the trust that you have in that locker room. You guys go through a lot of things together in a football locker room, and the season is long and grueling. When you have a guy betting against you, allegedly, potentially, perhaps, that's not good, right? So that's basically my whole take on Isaiah Rodgers. And with that, you've made it to the end of the episode. Congratulations. Shoot the like if you're still here. You couldn't have hated it. You had to have liked it. You had to have. And then go ahead and shoot a subscribe as well. If you don't do it today, I'm sure I'll get you along the way, but we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers here. I would love to get there before the season. If you have not subscribed yet and you find yourself as a returning listener, now would be the time to push that button. I'd appreciate that. Until next time, my name is Justin. This was a somewhat sloppy episode, but I think a fun one nonetheless, of the Ride on the Bench Colts cast. Until next time, go Colts.